On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I kind of take a break from all the CCP discussion out there and talk about one of his favorite subjects, prepping. So we talk about getting to know your neighbors, what you should prepare for, and canned spam. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. Hi, everybody. This is Greg, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to our newest sponsor, CoreLogic. There has never been a time when it's been more crucial for real estate agents to demonstrate their value to their clients, and CoreLogic has all the tools for them to do so. One Home has generated over 17 million unique users who are exploring listing and neighborhood data. Their invitation-only client portal has also amassed 2.3 billion listing views, and their new photo AI search helps turn clients' visual aspirations into reality. For agents on the go, there's MLS Touch, which is their top-rated real estate app in the App Store, which gives agents instant access to critical MLS data wherever they are, and also can be branded for collaboration as a client version. Next up is RealList. RealList gives agents expert level analysis of properties, which helps their clients make smarter decisions and also can help them with their lead generation efforts. All of this is underpinned by Matrix, the industry's leading MLS system. Currently, CoreLogic is rolling out Matrix 12, which will have a brand new interface that works perfect for mobile and desktop. Lots of great stuff happening at CoreLogic. Don't forget an update from your favorite rep, whether that's Rick, Todd, Kim, Lauren, or the rest of the crew, or visit their website. You can look at the link in the show notes. My thanks again for CoreLogic for sponsoring Industry Relations.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, Notorious Rob. And as always, my fabulous co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Thank you. Hola, Rob.
Hola. So I'm in white because I got a presentation later today. You're all in black. Like, you look like a football coach. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, I've got the Chargers.
Ripping the Chargers. Yeah.
The quarter zip, right?
Yeah.
The Chargers are 3-2 right now, and I thought it was a great win last weekend. So we'll see what they do this weekend.
Yeah.
I got my Giant Steps hat on, which I'm still kind of working on the new version.
Yeah. What's a guy got to do to get some of this Giant Step swag? I've been asking for it.
Yeah,
just you have a store? I'll buy it.
Greg at Giant Steps Advisors. If you're interested in swag, hit me up, and you might send me a physical mailing address, and maybe you might see some swag show up at your thing.
What else you got? You got a hat? You got t-shirt? What kind of swag you got?
Well, this is the standard t-shirt, right? I mean, everybody recognizes. Yeah. Everybody has one of those, right? Yeah. So,
although I lost mine. I love those shirts.
Yeah.
I think you guys should do those cool vests.
Right?
Hedge fund manager vests.
Okay, all right. I'll think about that. Like some
Patagonia, right? Patagucci, type stuff.
Yeah, I like that.
Charge your clients a lot of money, and then you deliver some Patagucci vests. Yeah.
I love the swag. I always love the swag.
What's the favorite swag? Like, what's your favorite type of swag?
My favorite type of swag. I like a good t-shirt, right? And I think, at W&R, we were the first ones that came out. I mean, typically t-shirts were, you got the cheapest one you could get.
Yeah.
We went for a high quality American apparel.
I remember those.
Buttery soft. And that just became a staple and a hit forever. Everybody's still wearing theirs. I always get pictures of people on them. And then, I do like these kind of, quarter zips or golf kind of active player. Who does a great job with those is homes.com, right? At the Clarity conferences, they would give them away. And little birdie told me that at the MLS Reset conference, they're going to have some giveaways there. So I like those types of things there. I don't necessarily like the big puffy jackets or something, but as you said, like a vest or a quarter zip is you always see pictures of me. I love a good quarter zip, right? It's kind of like the dad core kind of thing, right? But still, I'm a dad, so I guess I like it that way. A good baseball cap.
Yeah, my favorite type of swag are metal water bottles.
Oh God!
Followed by a nice hat, nice cap. because you
Yeah.
can't
The,
get
the
enough.
the problem with the water bottles is I refuse them now because if you go to my house, right?
Yeah,
All it is, if I took out every water bottle my wife got or I got,
yeah,
it would look like if I put them all on the kitchen counter, it would
yeah.
look like a rendering of the city of Manhattan of all different sizes and shapes. It'd be like a topographical map of Manhattan and the
Sure,
skyscrapers, right?
sure.
We have like probably 50, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think
Yeah,
everybody in real estate knows that because that has been a popular thing. Those
yeah,
drinking water
yeah. Because they're
aluminum
so
bottles are,
useful. They're
yeah.
so useful,
It's just
and
too. I have too many of them. Yeah.
although sometimes you'll get like speaker gifts or like the Yeti water bottles and the Yeti water
Yeah.
cups.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still use the
I
one from God, which company was it that gave it to me? I have to go look it up.
I was
Oh,
thinking
Matt,
about we also have,
Greg is going off screen. Show us.
some, Giant Steps coffee
Yeah,
cups.
yeah.
Those are
So I'm
pretty
saying you
popular,
need
right?
to do Giant Steps, water Yeti water bottles.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I mean, to have another water bottle in my house, I think it might
But
explode the
do the
cupboard.
Yeti coffee cups.
Oh, I love those
Insulated.
too.
Those are really
Yeah,
nice. So
yeah.
all right. So before we continue, how did your consulting MLS strap plan go?
It went great.
This is your
I had
first, right? First
this is the
real.
first one. Yeah. I did it
You
solo,
broke your
which I
consulting cherry, brother.
yes. Thank you. I'm not sure I would do it, alone again. I think it's gonna have to be me and Stacy on there. It's just, we were talking before the recording.
Yeah,
You're kind of like on stage for 8 hours, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then I spent so much time on this kind of, presentation about leveling everybody up to where I think
yeah.
everything is, and as I talked about before, I framed it in the sense of like a murder
Murder
board, and
board.
I
Yeah,
called it,
yeah.
"Murder on the Sitzer Express" is what I called the presentation, right?
Nice. Okay. Okay.
And, I had the players and the pins and everything on
Yeah.
the keynote I did and
Yeah.
or presentation, and I got a lot of great feedback. I think it
Great.
really helped everybody kind of get a level set of their education about everything, and then,
Great.
and, it helps, like, I don't wanna name who I was with, but, it was just a great group of people too. I mean,
Of course.
that's I think you and I talk about this a lot, realtors, real estate people are just salt of those people,
Yeah.
they're entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
and they're really, a lot of times in these cases, just wanting to do well,
Yeah. Yeah. They're
and,
the best people. Seriously.
so it's hard not to, and then, we had dinner afterwards, everybody, and you get to break bread with people also and get to know them a
Yeah.
bit personally, and
Yeah.
I love the fact of, in my business, I meet so many new people all the time. I think, a lot of thing about growing old is like you just stop trying or meeting people, and
Yeah.
I've been so lucky to meet so many great people
Yeah.
even now, right? And
Yeah.
I'm hopeful in the future to meet even more, but,
Yeah.
it was exhausting is what it was, but, it was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to do more of those.
Well, how long was it?
This one was just an all day thing, right?
One
So
all
we
day.
had
Okay.
yeah, so we went I came in the night before, they had, like, a get together the night
Yeah.
before, which I
Yeah.
attended.
Yeah.
Then in the morning, we got things started, and then, we had about an hour, 2-hour break, and then we had dinner,
Yeah.
and then I
All
caught
right. Well,
the next flight the
so
next
so the
day.
next step is the weekend.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, well,
multi-day offsite. You know?
yeah, I don't know if I could do it. I would wanna do it alone again, but, yeah, so
Oh man. All right. So here's the thing for people who are listening. Greg and I are kind of doing a little bit of show prep, and we decided we are sick and tired of talking about the same.
no mas, no mas.
We assume you are too. So we said, you know what? Maybe this is one of our personal episodes because yeah, we like to talk about industry relations. We like to talk about real estate, but sometimes we want to talk about other things. Like our favorite movies or TV shows. This might be one of those. So if you're not all that interested in the topic, then we'd say, hey, we'll see you all at the next one because the next one's going to be really cool. The next one we think
We
we're
have a
trying to line up a
guest.
special guest. Right, get delve deep into some big topics, and hopefully not dwell just on like commissions and CCP, like some big topics there. But given that there were two major hurricanes recently, uh, maybe you guys kind of know this because Greg and I will sort of mention it once in a while. Greg has all these questions about prepping because I have fully embraced the prepper lifestyle. So we thought we'd just talk about that because, make it more of a, one like more of a conversation you guys are listening in on. So without further ado, Greg, how you doing? Are you ready for the apocalypse,
I,
Greg?
I am not ready for the apocalypse. I've like maybe no. I mean, I live at the in Huntington Beach, right? I live
Hmm.
close to the beach.
Yeah,
But it is I love watching all the stuff on Bravo and cable about like the outdoor like Alone or
sure.
Alive or
Yeah,
those
yeah,
kind of things and like what would happen if everything kind of got shut down. But
yeah,
and then of course being in real estate you always see these things like this a silo that's been turned into a prepper kind of
that's right.
place or
Yeah,
thinking about buying a second home, a cabin in
yeah,
up in
yeah,
the wilderness to have
yeah,
some sort of bug out spot
yeah,
or like
yeah.
I'm always on Instagram and you see these ads for like 10 things to do when all the power goes out for more than whatever, or
Right. Yeah,
what you should have in your bug out bag.
yeah,
I mean, so it's I don't maybe it's just it's kind of a male thing, right? But it is kind of like
yeah,
a bit fascinating to me for sure.
yeah. So what I find so interesting about this is I started doing this in 2011, 2012, when we moved to Houston, right? And this is long before I was into guns. This is long before any of that. It's simply because I moved from New Jersey, right, to Hurricane Alley. Like, Houston, there's hurricane season, and
Right.
you would
Hmm.
hear about all the different hurricanes that came through, right? And obviously, we lived through Harvey and things like that. It's like, okay, so everyone just kind of, it's like a thing. It wasn't seen as like super weird, Oh, I'm gonna go get a generator, right? Whereas in
No,
New
yeah,
Jersey, they're like,
I
what's wrong
was
with you, right?
when I lived in Boca Raton,
Yeah,
same thing. I mean, that
right,
was hurricanes all the time, and
right,
I never thought about buying a generator, but I
right,
did buy a
right.
generator. So I mean, and you have you have to put on slats on your windows when it
Sure,
comes, and then we had all that shit. It was a pain in
all
the
that.
ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got into it then, and then, but of course, like all things, I get too deep into it. I go down these rabbit holes, like start reading some guide, of a guy who lived through the Argentina fiscal crisis, and people survived through Kosovo during the war, like all kinds of really deep and dark stuff. And what I find interesting is how mainstream it's gotten. Right? In other words, back when I sort of started, the idea of these like what's it called? Those emergency food rations, like Mountain House or whatever. That
Yeah.
was like not really a thing, So people would be like weird if you had that type of stuff. Like you're some sort of weird militia guy, Whereas
Yeah.
now, to your point, Instagram all over the place.
Yeah.
Like Joe Rogan's advertising, like it's really kind of more mainstreamed, right? So I think it's generally a positive. So where do you want to start?
So I mean, you know, I think of like a prepper, right?
Yeah,
They've either A got a bunker buried in their backyard from the 50s that
right,
they've repurposed,
right,
or they've got some other shelter,
right.
in the woods, like a cabin or something. But I
Yeah,
mean, can you prep and stay at home? I mean, what's I mean, or
right,
is it like you're assuming society's gone, it's the purge,
right,
and you need to
right.
get out of a fucking populated area?
So I'm gonna say this again. I'm no kind of expert. You know what I mean? Like there are people, who are genuine experts. People like special forces experience. Like I'm not one of those guys. And I would say if you're really interested, you probably want to go take some classes with some of those guys. This is just my personal kind of investigation, etc. So I would say let's start at the top. For me, and this is interesting because I just recently had a conversation about this. One of my buddies who's also kind of into this emergency disaster preparation stuff. I think the first thing you got to think about is what is it that you're trying to survive? What is it that you're trying to prep for? Right. So one of the reasons why I think this whole prepper thing got such bad, such weird whatever, is there's a TV show. I think it was on Discovery or one of those called like what is it? Something preppers, or disaster preppers, I
Yeah,
can't
it
remember.
might have been called preppers, actually. Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's something preppers, right? And they would highlight these families who are like, my concern is nuclear war. right? And then how is like so they would have bunkers and all this stuff, and it's kind of fun. Um, I think that's the first thing. Like, what is it that you're trying to survive? Because there's a huge difference between I want to survive a hurricane and I want to survive multiple years of society without rule of law, right? They're very very different. You know, so that's the first thing. I mean, it sounds kind of dark, but let's just say I don't know, world goes to hell, right? Something happens, the world's gone to hell, and it doesn't look like things like we're in Mad Max world, right?
Right.
Zombie apocalypse. Question is, would you want to survive that world? Do you want to live in that world? A year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Like, do you actually want to say, you know what? This is the world now. There are zombies. Do I want to live in that world? Right. And it's not something that like The Walking Dead, which popularized those zombie apocalypse. They kind of touch on it, but they don't really get into it
Well, you're talking for zombies in a metaphorical sense, right? I guess.
in a metaphorical sense. So if I don't know,
Just so
something
our
happens.
listeners are clear, we're not
So
thinking zombies are taking over.
take like Venezuela, right? If like, would you want to live in Venezuela? Would you
Right.
want to survive that, right?
Right.
Where things are like awful and powers and all that, and there's random violence, gangs roaming the streets. Like, would you want to live through that? I think that's a personal decision. It's something everyone just has to decide, right? For myself, like I don't actually want to live in that world, so I don't prep for that type of scenario, right? What I prep
Right.
for are things like natural disasters, social unrest, but it's like short term, right? In other words, like something like the Summer of Love, right? Like Antifa, BLM riots. Okay, the city shut down for a week. Okay, I want to survive that. Right? But if that goes on for 3 months, I'm like, there's no end to this. So that's the first
Right.
thing.
Right.
The second thing then is in direct answer to your question. What I've read, again, I've not lived through any of this. What I've read over and over, and the experts, what they're saying is, don't bug out, bug in, right? Because the most important thing when shit goes sideways is other people, right? So the biggest thing I think you could do as a prepper is to get to know your neighbors,
Hmm.
right? And it's such one of these stories about this comes out of the guy from Argentina. Was it Argentina? I think it was Argentina when they like in the 90s when they went to this huge currency crisis, and the society basically collapsed for a while. And he lived, I think it was like 2 3 years that they lived through in the early 90s. One of the things he talks about is some of the guys people would think like, okay, you know what, I have a farm, we're gonna go there, right? And you'll have food, we'll have whatever, right? And his point is, the people who did that, like, the first thing you're going to see are gangs of marauders, right? Like, okay, if you don't have the law anymore, you don't have cops. The first problem you're gonna have is like semi-organized bands of criminals, and they're hungry. And you got what they want. They're gonna come and take it. And the issue is if you're by yourself out in the middle of a cabin, if you're in a bunker, 30 dudes show up. What
Right.
do you do?
Right. Yeah.
What do you do? It's like, okay, but you're armed. You have machine guns. You're super armed. Yeah, but you got to sleep. And the gangs are smart. Like criminals are
Right.
smart. So they'll be like, okay, you know what? It's one family. How long can they stay up? Let's do it at 3 in the morning, right? Okay, so first night you stay up, right? What do you got the third night,
Right. So bug in, not bug out. Okay.
right?
I like that. Okay. All right.
I think that was one of the things I took away. So bug outs are very specific situations, right? Bug outs to me are for localized disasters, right? Where you still have the law. Okay, so let's say there was a huge flood. Say a tsunami hits Huntington Beach. Okay. So Huntington Beach is really dangerous, right? There's no power, the police are overwhelmed. Now you're looking at maybe roving gangs, right? At that's the scenario. But if you were to just bug out, if you were to go to, Nevada, if you were to go to Utah, they still have police, they still have the law, civilization still exists there. That is the bug out. Right? It's very limited use, right? But if it's the whole country's going to hell, like bugging out is That's not
Right.
the way. The better way is to get to know your neighbors and to defend your neighborhood. Right. So that was the first thing. Right. Second thing
Okay.
is everyone just immediately goes to weapons. I'm like, no, no, no. Food and water. Food and water.
Right.
So this is something I've talked to a lot of my friends. Like, this is a rule of thumb I read, from an expert. You need 3 weeks of water and 3 months of food. And the water part is serious, man. I think I'm gonna look this up. I used to know. I think you need something like five, like you know, water per person per day. Okay. You need Men need 3.7 liters. What is that? How many is a gallon? Ba, 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 ba. It's a lot, right? Because that's without shower, just drinking water. You need 15 cups a day.
Right.
So what is that? A gallon and a half or something? You know, I don't know. People are probably like, "What the hell?" And most people don't have that. A lot of people, you just turn on the faucet and you drink that, or you have bottles of water, maybe, right? But most people don't have like three
It's about a
weeks,
gallon. 15 cups is like 9.93.
right? So think about it. So if it's you, your wife, like then 3 weeks of that. That's per
Yeah.
day. So that's
Without
7 gallons a
showers or
week
anything else. Yeah.
without shower. This is just drinking water,
Yeah.
right? And most people like don't think about that very much. And water is really heavy and it's hard to carry, and we just take it for
Store.
granted, right?
Yeah.
We just take it for granted and shouldn't. And that's my first thing. I'm like, tell everybody, do you have 3 weeks of water? Most people I talk to do not, right? And then next, obviously, is food. Do you have 3 months of food, right? And the 3 months of food is because if something does happen, that could be a thing, right? And I remember when COVID first hit, everything
Yeah.
shut down and the shelves were empty. People were freaking out.
Yeah.
A lot of the people I know were
It can
like,
happen fast. It can happen fast for
no, but
sure.
I mean, so we were all like, well, this is why we prep, right? We didn't see this coming, but I'm not worried about running out and grabbing all the bread.
What about like power? I mean, do you guys have like a solar powered house?
We have solar panels and we have solar
Yeah.
batteries here
So
for
is
that
that,
reason, right? But
yeah. You can't
we
do
don't
that in
have a
all
whole
parts of the
house
states though.
generator. Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have that because we're in the desert, right? So that's the other thing. Like if you're in cold weather areas, and you probably have different concerns, right? Whereas we're in the heat area, so air conditioning. Here's how I think about it: air conditioning is really really nice to have. I don't think you could really live in Vegas without it. However, it won't. It's not a life threatening thing. Whereas cold is life threatening, right? So like if I lived in say Minnesota, I would be much more concerned about fuel,
Right.
right? Because cold will kill you. Heat can kill you, but if you're in shade, you know what I mean? Like it's just super uncomfortable. You're just sweating the whole time. Like it's not fun,
Right.
but I
Right.
don't think it'd kill you the way cold can kill you. So yeah, fuel's super concerning. For me, I just make a habit of I don't let my cars go below half tank of gas because again, something happens. We see this every time there's a hurricane. The line of cars at the gas station.
Well, you could have a Tesla, right? And if you have the whole hook up with solar, you're kind of you're copacetic that way, right? Or
Exactly,
any sort of other electric car.
which is exactly what I have. You
Right.
but not everyone can afford that, right? So there's that. Um, and then the thing that a lot of people don't think about is medication, right? So if you need medication, man, like you got to have a supply. And one of the annoying things about our country is because obviously prescription medication requires a prescription. It's very hard to store up like a 3 month
Yeah.
supply of
Right. Right. Right.
medicines you need, right? So that actually requires a conversation with your doctor.
Right.
And you got to tell them like, hey, I want 3 months of whatever. Say I need thyroid medication, right? So I want a 3 month supply. It's like, yep, totally cool. Write your script. It's something people don't think about, right? And obviously, if you have serious health concerns, like that's prepping wise, man, that's number one. Like to
Yeah.
me, that would be real high on the list, right? Because again, the expectation is there's no power. There's some disaster. Pharmacy ain't gonna be open,
Yeah.
right? Now what? You know,
You got to get. I mean, what's a 3 month supply of gummies look like, and how do they store?
exactly. You got to store that shit away. Right? Um, and then finally, it's the whole defense thing, right? I mean, it's super important, right? Because as we saw during some of the real unrest, like Katrina comes to mind, right? Unfortunately, like, you know, people are people, and not everyone is a good person, and in some
Yeah, but
cases, you
I
can't
mean,
even blame them.
this is coming from the rooftop Korean here, right? So,
Exactly.
I
You
mean, to
know,
me, it's like with that type of stuff. I mean, the other things you think about is like, if you got something, they could take it from you and use it on you too, right? I mean,
yeah,
um,
yeah. The thing,
yeah,
so I'll relay a story here. Like right at the start of COVID thing, right? And there was a lot of nerves, and we were having the riots, etc. I had some friends call who are like the biggest liberal lefties I've ever known, super progressive Californians, who were the entire like 20 years I've known them, they're anti-gun. And then I get a call earlier saying, "Hey, so hey, how do I get a gun?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, "What?" Um, the issue is, so I told him, okay, like, here's how you go about it. You're in California, so there's this roster, there's all this stuff, there's all these gun laws. You're not familiar with it because he thought you could just like walk into a gun store and just get one. Like it ain't like that at all, right?
in California, it isn't. Yeah.
It's anywhere in the country. Like there's
Oh, okay,
background
good.
checks, there's all this stuff, right? Um, but the thing that kind of bugs me a little bit, because I asked him recently, so have you shot? Like, are you practicing? He's like, nah, it's just kind of, he sort of forgot about it. I do think that's really dangerous. So, I'm a big 2A guy. I love guns, like that's cool. But if you're going to own a firearm, you got to be responsible. Like you got to get trained. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to keep it away from kids. All that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people get one, and they're just like, I have a box of ammo, right? Like in my closet. If I need it, I'll dig it out. It's like that's not a good idea. If you're gonna do that, don't get a gun. That's how I see it. Like if you're gonna get one, you actually need to commit to training and knowing what you're doing with it. And a lot of folks don't do that. Far too many. And they're just, oh, I'm prepared. I got a gun. I'm like, do you? Okay.
Right.
Like there's so much more involved with that. And obviously it's tough because if you're in California, right? If you're in New York, if you're in New Jersey, it's tough because your government hates you. So you have to work around that.
Well, I mean, it was gun violence was the number one killer of children last year. But yeah, go ahead.
Um, I don't know where you're getting that stat from.
We'll
Brady,
put it in the show. We'll put it in
Brady
the show
campaign.
notes.
All the anti-gun people want to disarm you.
We'll put it in the show notes.
We could debate gun laws if you'd like, but just so that's defense-wise, I would simply say, hey, absolutely, you need to be able to defend yourself in case shit. Like, there's no question about that. But whatever it is, man, like, you gotta kind of take it seriously. It's not a talisman. It's not magic, right? It's not like I have a gun, therefore I'm safe. Like, it doesn't work that way. You know.
So describe to me the scenario. So you're prepped. You got solar, and the situation is somebody knocks at your door
Right.
wanting help. Right. I
But
mean,
why? Like, what happened? What's the situation?
no,
In other words, like,
you're
what's the
2 weeks
emergency?
into. Okay, it's either, let's say it's a flood,
A
or
flood.
not a
Okay.
flood, but some natural disaster where power's been out for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and somebody you don't know,
Right.
knocks on the door looking for help. As a prepper, what's your modus operandi there? How are you behaving to
We're
people
two
coming up and
weeks without
knocking on your
power.
door? Yeah,
First of all, man, if you're 2 weeks without power, nobody's getting close to my door. Think about
right.
it.
So,
I think
are you
like when's
putting
the
up
last time
like
you went?
barbed wire or something? I
No, no.
mean,
When's the last time you went 2 days without power?
I think we did. We at one hurricane in Florida, we had 3 days.
3 days, right?
Yeah.
By the third day, how are people, you and your neighbors, feeling? Because
Oh, it sucked.
yeah, no, I heard this
Yeah.
great story. I didn't live through it, but when I first moved to Houston, I was talking to one of my friends there, and he talked about was it Irma? There was a hurricane that came through, knocked out power for like a week, and the way he sort of talked about what his neighborhood and he and his neighbors, they all knew each other, blah blah blah. It's fascinating, and it makes so much sense. Just human psychology. Basically, it said first day, big party,
Yeah.
right? Huge party,
Right. Right.
because like we got no power, not going to work, right?
Light some
We'll
candles.
have a block party, right? Second day, smaller party, but still a party, right? And by the second day, people are like, well, power's out, so all my food's about to go bad. So they're like, we might as well get together and do a cookout, right? Make ribs, whatever. Third day, he said, no parties, right? By the fourth day, people were no longer like answering their doors. And by the fifth day, you did not go to somebody's house, right? You didn't knock on their door. You stood well away. You called them ahead of, like, if you had any self, you know what I mean? Like, and it became real weird, is how I put it. Right. So 2 weeks, nah, man, nobody's going nowhere. Let's put it this way: there's no coming up to my door. I will see you at the entrance to my neighborhood first, and then trying to
How?
assess, are you a threat? What
How?
and how?
How are you
Like
gonna see them coming in your
binoculars,
neighborhood?
you know,
So you be at that point
eyes.
you're rotating sentries.
Well, that's why you got to know the neighbors, right?
Right.
And the neighbors would do. I mean, we would all 2 weeks into no power. No, we would be like, hey, we're gonna keep an eye out. Right. So again, then it's like, who is it? What's the scenario? Right? Is it like mom with two small kids, right? Okay, that warrants a different response than it's four young men. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Or the mom with two young men or two young kids,
Yeah,
with the four young men in the bushes using her as bait, right? I
it's
mean,
possible. It's
yeah.
possible. But like I think when you get to that level, there will be no more of the single. In other words, like it's not I'm going to answer my door, right? It's the entire neighborhood's turned out. Who's the stranger,
Right.
right? I mean, I, I think that's what would happen, man. I think that's just that's kind of what I'm prepped for, if you will, right? 2 3 days into it, whatever, right? And the government, and that's the other question: is the government still in play? Like, are the police still working? Right? If it's a hurricane, flood, the natural disaster, the issue is the cops just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They have too much other stuff going on, right? So they're not going to go answer some theft thing, right? They're trying to save
Right.
lives, right? That's the issue. Okay, well then, if no one's coming to save you, you got to take care of yourself, right? So, let's talk about you, man. Huntington Beach, you're a target. You're right on the beach, very wealthy neighborhood, surrounded by very poor people. Like, how prepped are you if shit goes down?
No, not I mean, I don't own a gun, right? So I've always talked to you. I always
Yeah,
if I was gonna get one, I want to get a shotgun. I think
you should get a shotgun.
that's
Yeah,
kind of cool. But I mean, I look at my own neighbors and we have block parties every year, a couple times a year, and everybody kind of knows everybody's got their
right,
cameras up and we're always helping
right,
each other if there's something that came up. But there's like
right,
to the left and right of me are two elderly people, right? So and one lives alone and she's
right,
quite elderly.
right.
Most of the people in they're probably first buyers of the neighborhood there and they couldn't
Sure,
afford to move if they wanted to. And then
sure,
some young couples,
sure.
young families as well, right? I have like from my front porch, I can probably see two of my neighbors are firemen,
You're right.
right? So
Oh, that's
I
helpful. That's really
that's
good.
helpful. I always
Right.
thought, right? So
Except that they're probably gone.
yeah, no, exactly,
That's the
right.
issue, right? In a real
But
emergency,
but
getting a
they're but
couple
they're
around.
also probably thinking of home an awful lot, also, right? So
So
um,
here's the thing: have you ever had a conversation with the neighbors
about
about, hey,
this,
no, about like if something happens, some emergency, civil unrest, natural disaster? Have
no.
you ever talked to them about, hey, what should we
No,
do as a neighborhood?
no, no.
To me, man, that would be step one.
Yeah,
That would be
interesting.
step one. Because if you're thinking about it, I guarantee they're thinking about it.
Right.
And one of them might be way more prepared. It's like, well, now that you mention it, Greg, here's what we should do.
Yeah. Here's
Even simple
here's
things like,
I've got 100 guns.
right? Even simple things like this. And I'm guilty of not knowing this because Sonny does. Like, do you have the phone numbers of all your neighbors?
Right.
Is
Yeah.
there a telephone chain so you could communicate and come together, right?
Right.
Like I live in a cul-de-sac, so it's real easy. We just get together at the end of the street. But if you're
Yeah.
not, like, it might not be bad to like, hey, if something goes down, let's meet at this place.
Yeah.
Like,
No, for
discuss
sure.
what we're gonna
I
do.
live in a cul-de-sac also, but
Yeah.
yeah, and we've got it depends on everywhere, and we've got a pretty good community. We got pickleball,
Yep.
outlines
Yep.
in our streets and stuff.
Yep.
So, the always getting together for those kind of things. But no, I don't know. I think Jen does, my
Hmm.
wife.
Yeah.
And I'm always worse with names.
Yeah.
I got enough people to keep track of in
Exactly.
this industry, much less my
Yeah.
freaking neighbors, right? So
So
I
I'd
do
say
have
that's step one.
I have 3 months worth of booze
There you
stored
go.
up. So I think
There you go.
can that replace any sort of water? Is that
No, probably not. I mean, but it has calories, so there's
yeah.
that, and it has medicinal properties, right? So
Pour some gin on the wound. Pour some
the
gin on the wound.
brandy's medicine in the
Yeah.
West. The stuff that people talk about a lot of times. I think here's the other thing. There's a huge difference in urban prepping and like rural prepping. So a lot of people talk about, hey, you need to get a gun to go hunting. I'm like, where the fuck are you going hunting in Huntington Beach? Like, where am I going
Yeah,
hunting in
no.
Las Vegas, right? So
No.
obvious things like that. Now, if I lived in North Carolina, just got hammered, I bet you there are gonna be a bunch of dudes out there who are like preppers, and they're like, hey, this is
Damn,
what I
let's go
prepared
get
for.
that moose. Let's get that
Right.
moose.
We're gonna go hunt squirrels, rabbits, whatever it is, right? Oh, fishing. Like if you live near a fishing thing, I don't. So maybe fishing is more practical for
Yeah,
y'all
maybe
on the
fishing,
ocean.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. But I don't know what you can catch like off a pier.
right. I
And
got the
then you have to
boat.
think
I don't
about
know if I'd ever like get on the boat and go somewhere because it's not a sailboat; it's a motorboat. So
right. So then where you
you
get the
need
fuel,
gas.
right?
Yeah.
The things that people don't think about a lot are like the bugging out thing. We saw this in Florida, right? In the Milton thing that just happened. The highway out of town is going to be 6 hour traffic jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a given, right?
Yeah.
And do you have an extra gas tank?
Right.
Because if you're sitting in a 6 hour traffic jam, you're going to run out of gas, right? Just idling. Do you know what I mean? Like people don't think about that, right? So they just go, okay, I'm going to head out of town. Like I'm not. That's why I'm saying like bugging in to me makes a lot more sense, right? Because I know my neighbors, right? I have everything like that. So I think that's the modern trend, right? The people are talking about bugging out. Now there is one area of prepping that I think is really really useful, okay, which is basic like trauma medical care. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
Medicine. Yeah. This is the first aid part of it, right?
correct,
Not
right?
just your own medicines, prescriptions, and whatnot.
Correct.
But yeah.
Correct. So, like for example, it's become really again. I'm in a different type of community, so like literally everyone I know. I wouldn't say everyone. A good half the people I know have taken what's called the Stop the Bleed class. Right. So this is gunshot wounds, whatever. How do you stop tourniquets? Chest seals, things like that. Like how to stop bleeding to save a life. Right. And when I
Right.
realized I took those classes, I'm like, this isn't just about gunshot wounds and this type of romantic shit. This stuff comes in real handy in traffic accidents, right? Or any just stuff in general. I don't think it's a bad idea to get a little bit of training. I'm not saying be an EMT, like that's not what it is, but like how to apply a tourniquet, right? How to stop, you know, uh, serious bleeding, and having some supplies, especially in your car. I think that makes a ton of sense. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So prepping, a lot of it means just picking up the skills, right? And like Stop the Bleed is free. Like I think the Red Cross does a bunch of those. If not, there's like more in-depth stuff that's a couple $100, and it's so worth taking those classes.
Yeah. I know Toby, my son, right?
Yeah,
He's in scouts, and
right,
they had to go through a lot of those kind of things
right,
there. So,
right. But there's no reason
yeah.
why, like as grown-ups, like oh, we should just go take a class, like you know. And again, it's like okay, if something happens, you step on, you get into an accident, tree limb falls on you, you know,
Right.
like do you know how to stabilize an
Yeah,
arm,
it's not just, you got a gunshot wound. I mean, there could
correct,
be a
it's not
thousand
right,
things that happen, yeah.
correct. So that's the thing. I think too many And again, it's sexy and it sells a lot of stuff. So there's this like tactical marketing stuff that's everywhere. I'm like, yeah, I get it, and I'm a big fan of all that, but it's not just that because that turns off
It's the
certain people.
skills to use it. It's the skills to use
You're
whatever's
supposed
in
to
that
use it,
kit.
and then certain tools
Well,
like
it's
I
like you
feel like
said with
every
guns, right? You
what
c you could have a gun, but if you don't have the skills to use a gun or skills to
right
use a
then don't
medical
get one.
kit,
Right,
then don't get one, yeah.
don't get one. But like some tools, like if you take the class, like every house should have I don't know 2 to 3 tourniquets, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. It's not just about, oh my god, I got shot, right? It's just literally if something happened, I don't know, something fell on you, right? You're in the garage, you're looking at something, some
Yeah,
tool fell on you, and now you're gushing blood from your shoulder,
yeah,
right? How do you like? You got to take care of it, right?
yep.
And most first aid doesn't take care of that.
YouTube, right?
Exactly, right? I'm like, like prepping. A lot of it is just, hey, you know what? We should go take a stop the bleed class,
Right.
right? And get some tourniquets and some bandages, right? Because it's not band-aid. It's not that. You need like Israeli bandages, things like that, right? I think that's useful, right? Um, and I guess the final thing I'll say is like again, this does not get talked about enough when or people don't think about it enough. But in the prepper community, we talk about it all the time. Is physical fitness, right?
Right.
Like, hey man, and I'm so glad you're like on your. We haven't talked about your weight loss journey recently,
Yeah.
but it's a struggle. Like if you're 100 pounds overweight, like prepping and survival is
Yeah, what
way
is it, the
harder.
whole thing? It's like, I don't have to outrun the threat, I just have to outrun you.
You right, right. But even beyond that, when you think about it, like if yeah, if you're unhealthy, like and shit goes sideways, there's no power, whatever. Like
Yep.
it's just
Well,
really
I
really
mean, on
rough.
the positive side of that, your spouse or your family could feed off you later on. Uh,
There's that. But like if you have to walk,
"We had to
five
eat
miles to water.
people. We
Yeah.
had to eat people."
So it's just like a holistic thing, and I think once you start kind of thinking in those terms, you start seeing other things, right? And I'd say like
Right.
don't go like people just go nuts and people go crazy about it.
Okay, so I mean, you say the prepper community, right? So
Yeah,
if we're gonna go all in on this a bit,
yeah,
is there, and maybe we could put these in the show notes
yeah.
also. Are there websites that you would recommend
No, I mean
people?
there
Or
there've
you don't
been
want to let that
yeah,
you don't want
exactly.
everybody to know your secrets, Rob. Is
No,
that
it's not
right?
that. It's I don't know it off the top of my head, and it's not like we do long show prep. It's okay. I'm gonna have all the
Well,
links.
okay, but maybe after this you could kind of just
Sure,
feed them to me and we'll put them in the show notes if we
sure.
can.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
certain books that I found really useful, right?
Yeah,
Certain
books would be great.
websites, certain experiences. And
Maybe we should
honestly, man,
create an
it's
affiliate link. I don't
yeah,
know.
no, right?
We'll see about that.
Honestly, it's just so like it's become mainstream, right? It's become mainstream. So like you can just
I
go
think I
Google it
think I
and you'll run
I
into
think
so many.
I agree with you when you see what's happening. And again, I don't want to make this about whether it's climate change or whatever, but there seems to be more of these natural disasters is really, and I think it's very smart that you kind of framed it in the beginning. Like, what are we talking about, right? I mean, because if it's zombie apocalypse, if it's
Right,
Mad Max, well, if it's a nuclear fucking situation, I'm not
right,
sure.
right,
Who wants to prep for something like that? But if it's a natural disaster, okay, what can we do for those kind of things? And we just keep on reading about these things
right.
time and time again. And and not to put any blame anywhere, but a lot of times the government can help you. I mean, so
Hmm.
being prepared is not is a much better strategy than blaming the goddamn government, right? Take care of
Yeah,
yourself, right?
yeah. No, and I think like that's one of the reasons why I think prepping is tends to be seen as like a right wing thing, right?
Right.
Because the fundamental premise of it is no one's coming to help you. Nobody's coming
Yeah.
to save you, right? And so if you want to put the most charitable spin on it,
But that's a basic tenet you should have anyway, right? It's like
you would
self-reliance,
think,
right?
you would
Yeah.
think, but dude, I've spoken to some people I know who when I get into this conversation is like, no, I don't worry about it. I don't prep because the police will take care of it. It's their job. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yo,
Yeah.
this is if there's like, let's just say Las Vegas. Okay, we go through what Minneapolis went through, during the Summer of Love, right? And there's mass rioting and fires everywhere and serious, serious like social unrest. cops are not coming to my house because I've got a break in I'm reporting. You know what I mean? They have much bigger
Right.
things to worry about.
Right.
They're not coming to save you. There's a natural disaster. I know people want to blame FEMA and all that stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. And FEMA's probably fucking up and there's something going on there. But like just naturally, like, I lived through some weather, some hurricanes in Houston, and just the authorities are busy. They got bigger priorities, right? So
Yeah.
that first premise of prepping is the government's gonna come to help you.
Right.
If they're around, great. Great. It's just we're prepping because they're not gonna come and help you. Like if you don't have any food, nobody's coming to your house to bring you food. You know, not not until it's way later. Like
Yeah.
once the fire's been put
Okay,
out.
so they say cans. Let's just,
Yeah,
let me ask you that. So,
yeah.
what about these kind of I mean, what do they call MREs? That's what army
MREs,
people
yeah,
do,
yeah.
right? So, what
Mountain
is
house,
the?
these emergency foods.
You've done some research. What's
Yeah.
your kind of go to like for a meal?
So this is just Sonny and I, right? Like we don't do the emergency rations type stuff because neither of us can really eat it.
Right.
So for us, it's like stuff that stores without refrigeration, right? So honestly, it's like rice, beans, just peanut butter, things like that,
Ooh,
right?
peanut butter. I like peanut
My
butter.
my one my one weird thing is spam, because I'm Korean, so
No, yeah,
I grew up eating a lot of
yeah.
spam. I love spam.
No,
It's disgusting. I
I
get
do
it.
too.
It's not something I would eat normally, probably, unless I'm going to a Hawaiian restaurant because
I
it's
remember
delicious.
when COVID happened. And we did what everybody did that one Friday when it was announced. I went
Yeah,
into the supermarket with
yeah,
everybody there,
yeah,
and I grew up with spam as well. Living
yeah,
in Hawaii,
yeah.
Hawaii was a big spam. One of the
Of course.
Hawaii and I think Alaska were the per capita largest consumers of spam. And I brought some home, and the kids had never seen that, and
Right,
they still make fun of me for it
right.
today, right?
Hey, man,
Um,
but fried spam is delicious.
oh God, yeah, and,
It's delicious.
toasted with some mustard. God, yeah, great
Yeah. So
bread, yeah,
it's things like that. Some people like the whole prepared, emergency food, whatever, 90-day supply in a bucket. Okay, cool, good for you. Do that, right? For me, like it's just too unhealthy. It's not something I want to eat, even in an emergency. Not the spam is great for you, but
yeah,
tuna fish, right? There's plenty of options. It's just you got to just figure out what do you want to eat.
right,
Right. Now, again, here's the difference. I'm not saying I'm going to eat this for the rest of my goddamn life into
yeah,
the zombie apocalypse. That's not what this is. This is something's happened. We have a natural disaster, whatever. Okay, while we're waiting for order to be restored, while we're waiting for things, the grocery store to be open again, what are we going to eat? It's that type of approach, right?
right,
Yeah, everything is like, what's your goal? If your goal is survive nuclear disaster, then none of this is going to apply.
yeah,
Then you need to do some other stuff. Then you probably want to have a farm and get a group of friends. I'd say 10 families minimum, and move to that farm.
yeah,
You're gonna need to build a commune. Have everyone go through like military training. Like that's a different order. That's a different business, right? That's a different order
yeah.
of things. But for most of us, like I think it's just, I would say, even a little bit is going to be tremendously helpful. So one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do this, especially with like North Carolina and Florida in mind, but specifically North Carolina, like have some water at your house.
Right.
Right? Have and since it's like water is really hard to store, have water purification. Like, do you have a life straw?
Right.
You know, like have a Berkey, right? I mean, there are things that can purify water, right? Because even if it rains, chances are you're not able to do like that's not a good idea, right? So you need to have some.
Rainwater's not good to drink?
I would not think rainwater is good in Southern California and Nevada, right?
Just
Because of the
pollution and such?
contaminants, right?
Yeah.
So you want to purify that. So think about things like that. So if you go and spend, I don't know, a couple $100 getting some water purification stuff for emergencies, that'll go a pretty long way, right? It's okay. You know what? Rob and Greg, they're crazy, but it's not a bad idea to have some food, right?
Right.
That I don't need a refrigerator for. Like, okay, you only shop at Whole Foods, good for you, right? And and then go get some rice, go get some beans. Go get
Yeah, start with don't think about a 3 month supply. Think of like a
no
week supply,
a
right?
week
Start
supply, a
there.
couple weeks,
Yeah.
and just store it somewhere. Thinking about things like don't let your car go to empty, right? Things like that. It'll go a long way, right? And then if you want to get into more stuff, then get into more stuff. Take a class, stop the bleed class. Get a tourniquet, get a chest pad. Get some Israeli bandages. Like have it around the house. Have a little med kit in the house, right? Not because you're gonna get shot or you're gonna shoot somebody, because you never
Shit
know.
happens.
Shit happens. You never know. Traffic accidents happen. So I think that's sort of the value in doing that. It's just a what if, and then just think about, okay, what is it? What's the contingency I'm concerned about, right? And I think that's highly dependent on where you are. Like here in Nevada, like we don't worry about hurricanes, right? We do worry about things like um, maybe the power supply goes out, right? Like
Yeah.
most of our electricity comes from the Hoover Dam. So let's say something happens to Hoover Dam. Okay, we have no power. Well, we got to deal with that. If you're Huntington Beach, I don't know what you guys are concerned about. I mean, but Southern California, you have earthquakes, right?
Yeah, no, earthquakes are a big thing. Sure. I mean, that's
Correct.
structurally you're having problems there, right? So you
Right.
should maybe keep
But
a tent or some
right.
other things there. I mean,
Right.
I just worry about like if when the chips and salsa run out at our house, it's a
Right.
pandemonium situation.
Correct. So then you will probably want to store some chips and salsa. You might have to get some of that preserved salsa that is shelf stable. Not good for you, but to avoid pandemonium. So,
Yeah.
all right. Like I said, fun conversation. I keep thinking, it'd be cool to find like an actual expert and have them on, to talk about it.
Well, we'll see how the reception of this is,
Yeah,
and I want you to think, Rob, though, of like some of those resources, books, or
yeah.
links that you could share with
Honestly,
us, and then
people who are listening might be way more expert than I.
yeah,
So if you have thoughts, if you have suggestions, recommendations, please put them, in the comments or email us, and we'd be happy to share it with the community, because we have a community, So, and we'd like everyone in the community to survive whatever disaster comes.
yeah, whether it's the zombie apocalypse or the
Right.
MLS apocalypse, right? So
Exactly.
whatever it is, right?
Exactly. We want you to survive whatever comes. So, all right. Well, thank you all
Wow.
for indulging us, because we didn't want to talk about CCP yet again.
Oh God, no, God, no, yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all. All right.
Thanks, guys.